minutes late. Okay, our financial report. The checking account has $12,290.90. The savings account has $10,105.83. So the total is $22,396. $22,396.73. And it always comes in handy in case we have to do something up to the Pioneer Museum. It's been almost 10 years for the roof, so there's more things that we need to have done on it, some more painting and stuff. Okay, under new business, after getting permission from the Fabius School, we have published the booklet called Fabius in History. It had been put together by the 8th grade social studies class during the school year 1938 to 1939. And we offer them for $5 each, and I have some over there in case anybody wants them. Is there any other new business? Is there any old business?
We're selling these books.
And the alumni directories are still here, there's a few left. Try to keep them upgraded. So I have them here every month. Okay, so the meeting is adjourned, and now Chuck Kuchar on with the program.
Okay, well, thank you folks for coming. I know it's a very cold day, and you could be home by your fireside, but you came here, and we're just real happy about that. We mentioned something. I brought in a number of the DVDs of previous programs, and these are, I think they're all 2016. And we've got more, so I can do this again and again. If you'd like to buy one, some of these are a single disc, and some of these are 2 discs. It's a longer program, and if that's the case, you'll see disc 1, disc 2 on there. So if you're interested in something, feel free to take off the rubber band, take it out, and we're charging $5, which sort of covers the cost of the materials to make it. And we have our camera technician again here today. Thank you for coming.
And her 2 sisters.
Okay.
They all join in.
This is a big help. We're very happy to say we've heard some really good comments about programs that we've been doing, and we're very glad to hear that. And I've been thinking about something that I could do, and I may be sorry I ever said this, but a number of years ago, in something called Area 51 in Arizona, there is a lot of people who believed then, and some still do, that an alien spacecraft landed and it was shot down, and the bodies of these people from some other place were suddenly buried someplace and put out of sight. Normally, when I talk about something, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about. But if I do talk about this, I don't know. I think there's a lot of uncertainty, but anyhow, there are interesting stories about this. And it goes back to the Cold War era. And it goes back to a time when people thought, at least that's what they said, that if we take these aliens and get them out of sight, get rid of them, maybe we can see what their equipment is like and reverse engineer it and get ahead of the Soviets. Well, there may be some interesting stories there. So, Sandy, volunteer for this year's all filled up, right? Or maybe next year to do this. Okay.
We can't wait.
I may be sorry. At any rate. Yeah, today we're very happy to have Chuck D'Imperio from Oneonta and talk about him in just a minute. Coming up next month, and next month we get back onto our Monday night schedule, 7 p.m., and the speaker is C.W. Valletta, Fabius graduate, who will talk about his interest in honeybees. I don't know what he's going to say, but as I think you've been hearing, honeybees are really in trouble these days. And this is a very serious problem. So I think this could be a very, very good program. And then in May, Ted Palmer of Manlius, New York State Police retired senior investigator. Now, if you have been investigated by this man, you may not want to come. I'll let you decide that. He's going to talk about the history of New York State Police and their 100th anniversary. So that looks very good. And today, we've had this man before. He does an excellent job. Is Chuck D'Imperio from Oneonta. Some of you may know him from radio. He's been on the radio, he tells me, for 28 years. What do you say, morning show? Early in the morning. 5 a.m.
Oh, we need him here.
I did that once when I had a paper up. I quit that. He's got a number of books out, about 9 books, and 2 more coming out soon about New York State. So you are now hearing one of the real experts on New York State. Interesting things we have today. He's going to talk about New York State food, potato chips, Saratoga, hot wings, Buffalo, Speedies, Binghamton. So here he is. And he also happens to have, by chance, a few books. If you're interested, they're up here. So Chuck, take it away.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Is this thing working? Okay, it is working. It's not working? It is working?
Press the button.
I did press the button.
Okay, sometimes it takes a minute to warm up.
Okay, you want me to sing or what? What do
Yes,
you
he comes from a
All
very
right, there?
musical family.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so it took a few seconds. Wow, this is cool. This is cool. I remember being here. I'm just going to give myself a little room, if you don't mind. I like to wander. I remember coming here a few years back and complimenting you on this facility that you have for your community center. I have done 500 talks, maybe, over the last dozen years, everywhere. There were a lot of communities that would be very jealous of what you have here, so I'm sure you put it into good use. Thank you for the introduction. I will amend it one way, and that is I have 9 books out. I don't write about New York State. I write only about upstate New York, okay? I don't write about New York City. And people say, where is upstate? Right?
5 miles from New York City.
Well, I gotta tell you, when I hear people saying, yeah, I'm from upstate, up in Westchester. Well, they've never been to Fabius, that's all I can say, especially on a day like this. So I am delighted to be here and to talk about my book. This is the last book that I put out. I have 2 more coming out this year, and Syracuse University Press is my publisher on this one. And just on the business side of life, I've brought a dozen of them. You can buy them on Amazon. You'll have it in 3 days. It's $30. I'll be happy to sell it to you and sign it for you. It makes a great gift. When it was time for this book, my editors at Syracuse said, well, Chuck, you've done a lot. Museums, graves, historical society. I mean, what else can we do? And I said, it's time for food. That's what it's time for. So we came up with the idea of a taste of upstate New York. And what they wanted me to do is to find these food items that are specific to our area. Some of them are micro-regional. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the cover up in the upper left-hand corner, that happens to be an item called sponge candy. All right? I see a lot of you going, Sponge candy you can buy at 100 different places in Buffalo. Once you get outside of Buffalo, it gets a little tricky. In Albany, they never heard of this. So that's a micro-regional food. Other foods that are from upstate New York have broken out, of course, wings. Wings now the #1 Super Bowl snack. Billions of them. All start in a little bar, as you know the story, in Buffalo, a little bar called the Anchor Bar. So there's the variety of foods that we have. The big ones that have blown out, the little micro regional ones. So I found 40 of them. And I have to tell you, there's several revelations I had when I wrote this book. It took me a year to write. I went to every place. I spent days interviewing, visiting, and eating all the way across upstate New York. And there's two surprises that I found in this book. Number one was the generational theme that I found in this book. Almost every chapter you will see it's not his bakery. It's his great-grandma's bakery. And he's just the latest one. See what I mean? So there's a lot of that in this book. And the other thing is the immigrant theme. Now, I knew when I wrote this book, I was going to run into a lot of Italians in upstate New York, and I did. But also French, French-Canadian, Swiss, German, all different nationalities with all different food stories, and you'll find them in this book. And I don't want to give away the whole book, but I certainly want to give you some of my favorite stories today from this book. And I always like to start it with chapter number 1. And chapter number 1 tells the story. It's the most charming story. It's the story of the pink striped cookie of Jamestown, New York. Okay? So we go to Jamestown, and we go to Eklof's Bakery. Eklof's Bakery is a Swedish bakery. Amazing place. 3rd generation, actually 4th generation now. 4 generations of Eklof's. This bakery is one of the last pure by-scratch bakeries you will find. And when I say by-scratch, this bakery grows their own wheat for their bread. I mean, these people are old school people. Now, they do have wedding cakes and cupcakes and holiday cakes, and they have the full bakery. But the story is about the pink striped cookie. 75 years ago, Grandpa's in there. I wasn't there. Grandpa's in there, and he's cheap, he's tighter than bark to a tree, and most of them were. They were immigrant families, they had no money, they had it all invested in the business, they had a lot of kids, so they knew where every penny was going. And the story goes is that old man Eklof was in there one day, and he looked over, and there was a pan with nothing in it. Why is there nothing in that pan? And the baker said, he said, put something in the pan, let's go, sell it. So he said, okay, and they ran over. And it was a pan that would have held perhaps a small eclair long, okay? So they said, what do we got? So they made a sugar cookie in there, and they brought it back to the old man. They said, here you go. He said, okay, that's not bad, but they're ugly. Pretty them up and let's sell them. So they went back. What color do we have in the icing bin? What do we got? Pink? Okay. So they ran it through with a pink stripe on it. And they brought it back, and he said, sell them. So they put them on top of the counter. And they called them pink stripe cookies, 5 cents each. And they put them right up in one of those, you all can see it, can't you? The old, Grandma had the old glass thing with the cookies and the cake in it, right up on top of the bakery counter. And as luck would have it, and I should tell you, a major ingredient in this book, along with hard work and a lot of toil, is luck. And as luck would have it, what is across the street from Eklof's Bakery but an elementary school? It's perfect. So they put the pink striped cookies up there, and pretty soon, here they come, right? Kids coming in after school. One, 2, 3, 4. An old man Eklof's looking down at him. Is that all you got, son? Yeah. Here. Take it. And he gave it to him for free. So you know what happened. Pretty soon the line's out the door, right? 1, Breathe. Well, here you go, take it. And that started the most charming story in this book. They make 100 dozen pink stripe cookies a day for 4 generations. They have given away 1 million of them. Okay? The New York Times finally found them and wrote a story about them giving away 1 million pink stripe cookies. So when I talked to Bob Eckloff about it, he said, yeah, the old man started it. He said, we do sell them. We sell lots of them. But if a kid comes in, they get a pink stripe cookie. And I said, that's charm, and it goes on today. He said, a little bit different now. I said, why? He said, today, it's grandma bringing the little girl in. The grandma that got the free one 60 years ago. Now she's bringing the little girl in saying, go ahead. 1, 2, and it goes on and on and on. I put that in my book as chapter number 1 because I thought it illustrates a lot of different themes in this book. The immigrant, these people were Swedish, the charm of it all, the luck of it all, and it's just a silly, stupid little cookie. But I think it's the most charming chapter in the book. And when I went back out there, because I'm always traveling upstate New York, doing new books, and whenever these became friends of mine, these people. I pop into Eckloff's, hey, Big Chuck! There they are, and right on top of his bakery case, he got the big old jar with the pink striped cookies in it, and right next to it is my book for sale, and there's a little sign on top of it that says, hey, we're chapter number 1. So the pink striped cookie is a story I like to tell that kind of encompasses all of the themes. By the way, and I think I have one coming up, but over the couple of years that I've done this, you know what some have done? I forget where I was in Syracuse. I just did a talk in Syracuse, and I did a talk in Rome. You know what they've done? They've gone and gotten the foods from the chapters. How cool is that? And then afterwards we've had, and we always start with a pink striped cookie. And you can go home today and order pink striped cookies. I think it's $5 a dozen plus FedEx. You'll have them in 72 hours. Nothing spectacular. But what a great little story that is. Next story. Next story, we meet Mike Briglia, the candy cane king of the Catskills. Why? Look, I drive down to meet Mike Briglia at his little candy store to interview him for my book. Typical candy store, unlike every one of the candy stores of our youth that you're all thinking about right now. On a corner, Mike's Candy Corner. I go down to meet him. Mike, nobody in the store. It's a little store, not a lot of product. And I go in there, hello, hey Chuck, is that you? Yeah, pretty soon he zips around in his electric wheelchair. And Mike has MS now. And you'll see the picture of him. He's got a Santa hat on. He looks like an elf. He's got his arms filled with candy canes. And he's ready to tell me the story of Mike Briglia, the candy cane king of the Catskills. He said, Chuck, it's just all luck. He said, it's just 2 people in here, me and my brother Joe. And it's a little shop. This baby goes from the door there to here, all right? And there's the counters with chocolate stuff, and not a lot. And then right here is a window. And behind that window is a big, just like this, a big white marble candy. Been there 100 years. Candy counter. And that's where they make the candy. He said, I'm in here one day and the phone rings. He said, I pick up the phone and it's the lady who is the manager of the Kingston, New York Holiday Inn. And she said, Mike, I need some help. Mike says, what's the matter? She said, I've got a lady looking at me over the counter right now. And there's 50 business professional women here for a convention. And right now they're supposed to be going on a luncheon cruise on the Hudson. But it's thunder and lightning out, and it got canceled. And she's asking me, what else can I do? So she said, I want to send them down, and you can show them how to make candy canes. And Mike says, no, we're not doing that. No. And I've never done that. We're not. She said, I need you, Mike. I don't know what else. Saturday, I've got nothing else on my, so I'll send them down. He said, don't you do that. Don't do that. And the lady hung up. Mike says, oh, brother. So he says to Joe, go set up in the back, Joe. Joe's kind of a skinny guy. Mike, a little round guy. So pretty soon, Mike says he looks out. Holiday Inn van pulls up. 50 women get out and they come in. And he said, I never did this before. So he said, I went out there and I said, welcome, ladies. Thank you for coming. This is chocolate. This is not chocolate. You know, and he's kind of stumbling around. Pretty soon one lady yells, when are we going to see the candy canes? He says, okay. He says, we're kind of known for candy canes. So come on, up here, right up here. A window with a curtain, right? Window with a curtain right here. He says, come on. Everybody comes up and they all gather. And just at this point, a lady raises her hand in the back. And she said, do you mind if I take pictures? And he said, no, go ahead. And this is before everybody had a camera on a phone. So she's got a camera. Come on, up here. He knocks on the window, the curtain opens, and there's his brother Joe with a white hat on, just kind of waving through the glass, right? Not knowing what he's getting into. But he had the equipment all filled with a candy cane mixture. Mike says, let her go, Joe! And it starts. And pretty soon, it all happens like it had happened for so many years. The machine started. The people pressed up against the window. The lady's taking her pictures, right? They get up here. Here it comes, and Joe's working his magic. Out it comes. Here comes the white. He pulls it out slowly and turns it. Here comes the red. He twists it so there's a stripe around it. Pulls it out, cuts it, shapes the top of the cane, puts it in a little plastic bag. Boom, a red and green ribbon into the basket. Pulls it out. Here comes the red. Twists it a little bit. Cuts it. Makes the candy cane. Puts it in the bag. There's the ribbon. He does that 50 times. 50 times. And the women are just mesmerized. It's like magic. And when he gets all done, Joe's sweating through his shirt. Right? So he brings the basket out. And he gave it to the ladies. And that was their little gift. And they left. And Mike said, that's it. It's Miller time. Joe, put the clothes sign up. Let's go next door to Casey's. And he said, and that was it. He said, I was glad to help out.
What year was that?
Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. I said, is that the end of it? He said, no. That was just the beginning. I said, why? He said, I went home that night and I went to bed. Middle of the night. Ring. Oh. What? All right. Ring. Hello. Now? All right, I'm coming down. So he got dressed. He went down to the candy store. There was a knot of people in front of the store, 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning. He said, what's going on? And they said, Mike, haven't you seen it? He said, seen what? He picks up the Sunday Times, New York Times, the whole bottom half. Mike Briglia, the candy cane king of the Catskills, with a picture of Mike in his Santa hat. And Mike says, what? The lady with the camera was the food editor of the New York Times. She went back to the Holiday Inn, filed her story, and there he was. And everybody's slapping him on the back. Hey, candy cane, candy cane. You know, and he's going, he goes inside. Phone's ringing off the wall. Mike's Candy Corner. Yeah, okay, all right, how many you want? All righty. Up. Mike's Candy Corner, how many? All right. Mike's Candy Corner, how many? And it went on like that all morning long from people who had seen it in the paper. Orders for his candy canes coming in from all over the country. He said, Chuck, I ran out of paper to write the orders down. So I wrote it on the wall, and he showed me it still on the wall.
That's great.
I said, that's unbelievable. He said, that was all luck. He said, he said, I got some kids to help us from the Kingston High School. He said, it was so funny. He said, IBM was laying off in Fishkill, but Mike's Candy Corner was hiring. He said, it went on for a couple of weeks like that, and then it died down and kind of went back to being normal. I said, how's it feel to be normal? Well, part 2. He said, I go about a year and a half, 2 years. All of a sudden, a lady comes in. She said, Mike, have you seen the magazine? And Mike says, what magazine? Right?
Oh, no.
So she hands him this magazine. And what it is the international edition of Better Homes and Gardens, the Christmas issue with Mike's Candy Canes on the cover, and his phone number. He said, I was sending candy canes to countries I never even heard of. December 2002. So he said, it was luck. That's all it was. He said, had it not been raining that day, the lady from the Holiday Inn would have never called me, and I'd just be little Mike in the candy store. He said, now, I'm the candy cane king of the Catskills. Your Royal Highness, I call it. It's a great story, isn't it? Come on. I mean, luck again, luck. Wonderful stories. Now, as you go through these stories, I have to tell you, everybody, when I always would call and I would try and make an appointment when it was closed so I could spend the day with the owners and get the story and get to know them and all that. I had one person say, I'm not interested in being in your book. What do you mean you're not interested in being in my book? She said, no, we're not interested. I said, you know, you're a real food icon. You're a legendary food. I'd love to tell your story. Yeah, we're not interested. I said, look, I'm not going to write anything bad about you, but I want to know the story. Well, we don't do the press and the media. I said, can I send you a questionnaire? You can fill it out. We never have to meet. She said, no, we're not going to do that. And then she hung up. And I thought, I'm putting her in the book anyway. And you know who it was?
Your mother. Oh my gosh.
All right? Grandma Brown wanted nothing to do with Big Chuck. All right? So I said, I'm going to put her in anyway. So I went to Mexico, New York, right north of Syracuse. And that is where they make Grandma Brown's baked beans. You all know what Grandma Brown's baked beans is. Everybody does, right? It's one of the legendary foods of upstate New York. So I went there, and I found the Grandma Brown factory. Low, one-story building. It is the color of baked beans. You can see a color photograph of it in my book. And it's surrounded by barbed wire fencing. And I thought, this is not NASA. This is baked beans. What's going on? I didn't dare go in because I felt this lady was going to toss me out. So I stood there for a minute. And I noticed a guy come out the side entrance. He lit a cigarette on a smoke break. So I went right around there and said, hey, excuse me. You work? Oh, yeah. I said, my name is Chuck, and I'm writing a book about upstate New York foods. Grandma Brown's popular item. How do you like working in there? Turned around, walked in, shut the door behind him. I have to tell you, God's truth. I've given this talk 100 times. More often than not, somebody, I have something I can add to that, Chuck. Go right ahead. I recently spoke in Windsor, New York. Lady says, I have something to add to your Grandma Brown story. What is it? She said, in the late 1950s, I was a senior at Windsor High School. She said, I was the president of our class FFA, Future Farmers of America. And that year, the FFA statewide convention was in Oswego, right next door to Mexico. And so I got to go, my vice president got to go, and a chaperone. And that's the way it was, statewide. However, in those days, we had to find our own transportation, and we had to find our own place to stay for the convention. And so they provided us with a list of local residents who have opened their homes for the convention. And I stayed at Lulu Brown's house in Mexico. I said, really? She said, I'll never forget. Lady's 75 years old. We showed up in a station wagon that the chaperone was driving. She said, I got out, the vice president got out. We got our suitcases. Little old lady, there she is, right there. Little old lady came over and greeted us, and we went inside. She couldn't have been nicer. When we got inside, she turned to us and she said, I hope you enjoy your stay there. You may or may not have heard, I make something called Grandma Brown's baked beans, and we would ask that you don't inquire about that during your visit. What's going on? I had another lady. I spoke in Lake Placid. The lady said, you know what, I got something to add to the Grandma Brown. I said, what? She said, for years, I was the head of, not the head of, but she was involved somehow in the Oswego Chamber of Commerce. And she said, we did fundraisers all the time and stuff like that. And she said, so naturally, like every community does, I send out postcards to all the businesses. Would you like to sponsor our youth Christmas concert? Whatever. Everybody responded, except Grandma Brown's never once responded to any of her requests. So these little pieces, you know, she looks like a lovely lady, and the beans are great, but who would have thought she didn't want to be in my book? I gave her the biggest chapter. All right, here's another good story I like. This is a story, it's hard to beat this story. I'm telling you, it's hard to beat this story. Western New York, way out in Western New York, there is a little community out in Western New York called, I want to find the picture because you're going to love this at the end. Yeah, there it is. There's a little community out there called Wyoming. Right? Anybody? Wyoming, New York, in Wyoming County. Okay? When you go to Wyoming, New York, it's so beautiful. Tiny, this size. It's so beautiful. You park your car. It's a main street. Beautiful Victorian houses with the long yards, right? It's beautiful. I was there in the fall. And I got out of the car just to walk around. There's something there. Until it dawns on you. the old-fashioned gas lamps up and down Main Street are flickering natural gas. It is the only community in New York State that was founded on top of a natural gas stove. And they light and heat their little community that way. It's so charming. In fact, the sign says, "Welcome to Wyoming, New York, upstate's original gaslight village." It's gorgeous. And so there's these old wrought iron flickering things and the beautiful homes. Now, I have to stop here, as I always do, and tell you, the book has been beautifully reviewed. It's now in its third printing. It's the biggest book Syracuse University has had, a regional book, ever. A fancy schmancy book writer, reviewer in New York City, actually Long Island, once wrote about this book. Chuck D'Imperio has captured a journal of iconic foods in upstate New York. And I thought, I did? I mean, I ate half-moon cookies and buffalo wings, right? I didn't capture a journal of iconic foods for all time. Maybe I did. You'll see what you think right here. So I am walking down the street in Wyoming, and I'm heading to the mall. Their mall is the only business in town. It is a low-slung, single building at the end of this beautiful Main Street with 4 storefronts. The one on the end is a dollar store. The one next to it is an 89-cent store, and it's killing the dollar store. The one next to that is for rent. And the one next to that is where I'm heading. And I had called in advance. And I need to find out the story of apple sausage. I see that look everywhere I go when I mention that. Apple sausage. So I find myself at Dury's ShopRite Market. Jim and Barb Dury. I go in. They are the birthplace of apple sausage. So I go in. Backstory is this. Jim Dury graduates from Wyoming High School, early 1950s. His dad is not a farmer. Most of the kids are taking over the family farm. He says, Papa, Dad, I don't know what to do. And Dad says, you know, that little market is for sale. People have used it. That'd be a good little business for you. And Jim says, all right. So they go. Dad and Jim go down there. And they make a deal with the guy who's selling it. And Jim Dury's now going to be the owner of this little supermarket. Within weeks, he's in the service. Korean War, he's gone. Just before he leaves, Dad goes down to the market owner and says, the boy is going to war. Will you honor our business agreement? God willing, he comes back. And the guy says, sure. Jim Dury goes to war, comes back, and now it's Dury's ShopRite Market. Early 1950s, all right, long time there. And he and his wife have run this all these years. A funny story here. I walk in the door, ding, 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 I come in, nobody in the store. I haven't seen a person in town, not a human being in Wyoming. All right? And I go in, and there's Barb Dury behind the cash register, right there, and she is the bad cop in this story. She's just sitting there like a lump, like this. I said, hey Barb, how you doing? I said, I'm Chuck. I called and, you know, I said, well, I'm doing a book and I got to get the story of the apples. She said, that's all Jim, not me. That's all Jim. I said, okay. Where's Jim? She said, he's back in the cooler making apple sausage. Well, I'm back there, I'm not doing it. So I go in the back. As I walk through this store, old creaky oil wood floor, you would never buy anything there. You really wouldn't. It doesn't look like it had been dusted since the 60s. There was no milk, there was no bread, there was nothing. But the whole center aisle is low, open-air freezers filled with frozen bags of apple sausage. So I go in the back, I open the door, and there's this little guy, he's the good cop. Hey, Chuck, come on in. Better leave your coat on. I said, okay. And he's sitting there with his coat on, making apple sausage. And he tells me the story. For 2.5 hours, I'm in the meat cooler with Jim Dory, as he tells me the story. And again, he had it, he met Barb, I think he met her at a Grange dance. She had a little short skirt on. I don't know whatever happened to that. But in any case, he's in there making, making his apple sausage. He says, yeah, he said, things were tight. We didn't have kids, things were tight, but trying to make it. He said, Barb was she was like the prison guard, and this was the prison, is the way he described it to me. I said, well, where'd the apple sausage? He said, well, we were known for our pork sausage. People loved our pork sausage. And one day, Barb saw a bushel of apples that were just about ready to turn. And she said, I'm not losing those apples. Put them in the sausage. Let's see what happens. So they did. They cored them, didn't even peel them. Cored them, took the seeds out, cut them in half. Sausage, apples. Sausage, apples. And out it came. Apple sausage. And people loved it. They couldn't get enough of it. And the people come from miles around. And pretty soon they were known for their apple sausage. The pork sausage sales started to fade away. And they were the apple sausage people. He said, Chuck, it was just been a great, he said, look, the apples are about ready to turn, or I'd never have stumbled on an apple sausage. I said, do you sell a lot? And he said, oh yeah. He said, you saw that freezer out there? I'll fill it up tomorrow. He said, believe it or not, Chuck, every year we have a festival in Wyoming. It's called the Apple Pumpkin Festival. And it celebrates the apple and the pumpkin harvest of Wyoming County. And it's held on that little main street that you just came up. He said, there'll be 10,000 people here for that festival. Vendors up and down the line, music playing, what a day it is. He said, and on that day, the front door is open, Barb sits right where she is now, the back door is open, we have kids come in and help us, and the line comes in from the back door, they get their apple sausage, all these people coming home, right? Visiting their hometown. He said many of them have coolers with dry ice in it, and they take it to Florida for the winter. He said, I never leave the cooler. I'm in here all day long making. He said, people just love it. And I said, Jim, this is a fantastic story. And I thanked him for his time. He said, come on, I'll walk you out. So we go walking out, and Barb hasn't moved. So we get up there, and I said, Barb, I have to say something to you that you're not going to like. I said, my editor told me that for every chapter, I have to have a photograph. I said, I need a photograph of you and Jim. I'm not getting out of this chair for no picture. I said, Barb, you have to. If you want, Jim and I will come around behind that counter and pick you up and bring you out here for the picture. And Jim, like I said, he said, come on, honey, we're going to be in the book, please. She's like, oh, all right. She's like, all ornery. She comes out, and the two of them, they're this big. The way I describe Jim and Barb Dory, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I really don't. Have you ever been to a craft festival or a craft show? Have you ever seen the little dried apple people? You know what I mean? The little dried heads with this, that's them. They look just like little dried apple people, right? And so they come over here and they're standing there like this. I got my camera and I thought, I've got one take on this. So they're standing there, Barb's like this, Jim's just grinning, my two little apple people. Jim's grinning with his arm around her. I said, okay, here we go. 3, 2. And just before I said 1, Barb reached into the freezer, pulled out the sign that said apple sausage, and held it in front of her. I swear to God, they did. It was so funny. You can feel free to come up and look at this afterwards. And I laughed inside, of course. I laughed. And so I got my picture and I left. And here's the deal. I'd come out on the porch of the store. I gave him a hug. I got in the car. I hadn't seen a human being except Jim and Barb Dory in 3 hours of my own. And as I drove away, looking in my rearview mirror, there's Jim and Barb waving in the rearview mirror as I'm going by the beautiful Victorian houses and the flickering natural gas lamps and the autumn leaves coming down. And as I drove away, looking in my mirror, it's like they vanished. And that's what that writer meant in the Long Island newspaper. Chuck D'Imperio has captured a journal of iconic upstate foods in his new book. And that's what I did with them. I have my little apple people, forever, never, never, in that book. It's been a couple of years. I have no idea whatever happened to them. I'm guessing they may have passed. They may have retired. Nobody was going to take over an apple sausage business. But you know what? I don't want to know. I really don't. And I've had people, too, who've heard me give this talk twice. And they'll come up the second time, they'll go, oh, look, Chuck, I Googled them. And here, let me show you. I said, don't, I